But go to these other crystal booths and ask them a simple question. Where's the clinoptilolite? I saw a couple people go, huh? So, the most powerful crystal on the planet is actually not found here, except one place. It's actually right in here. We're going to hit on that in a minute. The other part of the pineal gland, the calcification hormone component, inside the pineal gland are found little crystalline fragments that work as oscillators for communication. This is actually science and it's proven. So if inside the pineal gland are little crystals, outside the pineal gland is a bunch of fluoride to calcify it, which means it can't resonate, can't receive signals. The first thing you have to do is probably decalcify it. I think we could all agree on that, right? Because if you have a block, you have to remove the blockage in order to get it to work. But because we are this complex operating system, you can't just focus on the one little gland, say we're going to focus on the pineal gland and make the pineal gland work better. Because if you want a computer to work, it's a big connected system. The same thing with a vehicle. You can't just focus on one area to get the entire operating system to work. So you have to understand and focus on how this entire system works with that gland and how you get everything else to function better. So, hormones. Who here has amazing restful sleep every night and dreams well? There's like 4 or 5 people and I know what you're taking. Everyone else here is like, man, I don't sleep very well. How many of you take melatonin supplements or have heard to take melatonin? You've seen commercials? You know, in the United States, and it might be a little bit different here, if you watch television for programming, if you watch the commercials, there's usually a couple different commercials that you'll see, different types of commercials. You'll see beer and alcohol commercials. You'll see drug commercials. And then you'll see a separate class of commercial that varies based on what is being sold. It could be pillows, it could be mattresses, it could be melatonin, it could be valerian, it could be lavender, but there's an entire category of sleep, right? Because we need to sleep. 1/3 of our life should actually be asleep. There's been a couple movies that have been put out. You can almost call them documentaries that kind of outline the benefits and the importance of sleep, because it's when we create, it's when we solve, it's when we recover, it's when we regenerate. And they wanted to shut that off. So how does melatonin get produced? Do you take it as a supplement? Or is it supposed to be done endogenously? And here's the second question. There's been a really big push in humanity in different parts of the world over the last, did you say 5 years, Pat?
Maybe a little bit more, but yeah.
A little more, on a subject called DMT. And I think it was Joe Rogan that did an interview a little bit ago that he was looking at some of the literature and the conversations that are starting to come out about endogenous DMT. So you don't have to go take a bunch of mushrooms or go find a toad and rub a toad the right way and get some toxins from a toad. We produce DMT naturally if we're functioning properly. You want to know the best indicator of DMT production? You know where it is shown? It's your dreams. If you're not dreaming, one, you're not getting restful sleep. You're actually not getting into deep sleep. You're not getting into REM because it's the dream world. And if you guys watch movies like I do, I watch movies for the content because I love the writing, and some of the messaging is always there. And I'm going to reference one of the best documentaries ever regarding the pineal gland in a minute. But the movie Inception, if you watch that with Leonardo DiCaprio, talks about creating other worlds while you're asleep. That's our dream state. That's where we can manifest and create this world and construct it while we're resting. But you can't get there without doing one thing. It all comes down to your pineal gland. So the hormones, melatonin and DMT, are actually synthesized and produced through your pineal gland. But those hormones aren't produced in your pineal gland. They're not produced in your brain. They're produced in your gut. You've heard of the connection between the gut and the brain, right? And there's a midpoint, your heart. And all three of those line up through your vagus nerve. So you have this little connection point through your entire nervous system that connects your gut, your heart, your brain. And you look at your chakras. You go, crown. We're not going to talk about the crown. I'm in the UK. You can't do that. Your third eye, your heart, your dantian point, your stomach chakra, your root chakra, my favorite. They all have to be connected. They all have to be working properly. If you decalcify your pineal gland, but you're not taking care of your gut, you're not taking care of your brain, you're not cleaning up the rest of the system, you're not feeding your gut what it needs to produce the neurotransmitters, the dopamine and the serotonin. Just working on your pineal gland, to say I'm focusing on this without focusing here, without focusing on the rest of the system, is going to leave you wanting, because you're not connecting all of the systems. So what's been done by the amazing Dr. Rom, she's here, and this is what happens when you put a mom who has a nanotechnology and bioscience engineering background that was put here to heal people in a war on healthcare, and she starts to create the solutions that are needed to address the problems of humanity. So let's hit on some of those. So, little chemistry pathway before we dive into some of the good stuff. You decalcify your pineal gland. Then what? Well, everybody heard of serotonin, right? Everybody knows about dopamine. Dopamine's the most powerful of the two, but serotonin's really crucial. 95% of the serotonin in your body is actually produced in your gut. But if you have a leaky gut, or they say dysbiosis, or you're loaded with toxins and glyphosate and metals and mold and fungus, what's really important is, and I've learned this from Dr. Rom, as she's written an amazing book that everybody can come get, and I'm pretty sure that she'll sign it. I'm terrible with microphones. This little thing is like an outline for a simple understanding of what goes on in this amazing operating system. And the title is really simple. It's called Cure the Causes. Because people want to talk about cures all the time, but they don't understand what the real cause of the problem is. You can go walk around this show and people have lots of booths to say, we're going to cure this, or we're going to treat this symptom. And the drug industry has been predicated on this entire process. Side note, Jordan Peterson moment, right? In 1974, the World Health Organization published the data that at the time, and it was in the 60s and 70s that they'd already proven this, but they published it in 1974, that every chronic disease was actually caused by environmental toxins. Mercury, cadmium, arsenic, lead, aluminum, cesium, strontium are the cause of all of those issues. But they're genius, because if you know the cause, don't ever touch it. Because if those causes create a cascade of symptoms that you can diagnose as an issue and create drugs to treat those symptoms that create more symptoms that you can prescribe more drugs for, And the cascade of having those toxins in your system over an extended period of time that continually build up because you're going to continue breathing, you're going to continue eating, you're going to be drinking water and other things that are loaded. You're going to continually poison yourself, which is going to lead to more symptoms, which is going to lead to more diagnoses, which is going to give them an opportunity to treat more. But there's something really unique about the body. If you remove the cause, can you have symptoms? No. It's honestly that simple, and it's hard to accept that once you start to clean up the mess, and then you start to feed the right things, we can reboot. Just like a computer, if you hit Control-Alt-Delete, and you hold them down at the same time, you can't hit one, you can't hit Control and just hold it down for a second and say, okay, I'm going to get where I want to go. You can't hit Control and Alt. You have to hold all three down, and your system, your operating system on your computer, will slowly shut down. It'll clean itself up a little bit as my screen goes black. And then it's going to reboot, and it's going to come back on, and it's going to work a little better. So that principle kind of applies to us. Get into my second favorite movie analogy. So I watched the fourth version of it on the way over here. There was a documentary done many years ago. How many of you are red pilled? So, if you've taken the red pill, or if you've watched the documentary on the pineal gland and what we're capable of doing, you've seen The Matrix, right? If anyone here hasn't seen The Matrix, we need to have movie time later. So, in The Matrix, there's a lot of symbolism. Red pill, blue pill, and you hear people talk about getting red pilled all the time. So, if you've been red pilled, are you aware or are you awake? Because what we hear talked about a lot is the awakening that's taking place. But if you remember watching The Matrix, when you took a red pill, you became aware of what was going on around you. But the awakening process took work. It took time. There was a couple things that were needed. And the symbolism of what Neo stood for, which was the one. She hates it when I do this, but the one. Becoming aware allows you to see the world around you for what it was. That's what people are seeing. But there was something, and in the movie it was someone that Neo had to find in order to really start that awakening process. It was the Trinity. It was Trinity. And is it not just really interesting that today is the day that sits between Good Friday and Resurrection Sunday, and we're sitting here talking about the pineal gland and turning the light back on, and I think tomorrow we're celebrating the light coming back. Makes you think, But once he found the Trinity, he had to get plugged in. And if you remember, they have to sit in a chair, sit back, and they go into a dream state because they get plugged in, right? And then in that dream state, they're able to do a whole lot more stuff. And when people think about your third eye, they think here. But if you understand the physiology of the brain and where the pineal gland sits and how you would access it, you go right here. And if you watch the movie, where the connection point is, where they put the probe in, it's basically sending light into the brain, sending signals and frequencies to communicate. It gives you the indicator of exactly what they're showing us. That little gland, that little light receptor, is what they're sending all the signals through that allows this operating system to reconnect and reboot. So, if we've been told we need the Trinity, and spiritually we've been told throughout our lives that you have to be connected with the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, right? Depending upon your philosophy, that's one approach to it. You have to have all three. You can't have two. You can't just work with one and think the other two can come later. You need all three. That philosophy also applies to our systemic greatness. Because the term wellness, I despise, even though it's in our company name, because when we named it, we had to make something that resonated with people. But you have to understand that we are not made for wellness. If we are light, which we are, and we have a light receiver, then we are made to be great. Because light is infinite. Energy is infinite. Energy is never lost or destroyed. It only transfers and moves, right? It flows. Bruce Lee, one of the greatest philosophers of all time, and I don't think you could ever argue with Bruce Lee because he could destroy you physically, right? That's the best part of a great philosopher. You look at Jung and Marx and all these guys, they have their philosophies. You go, you know what, if we met in the street, I could take you. You talk to Bruce Lee, you know, this is not going to end well. I'm going to listen to this guy. He's not very big, but you know, he's like, probably going to win in an argument. One of his best quotes was to be like water. But think about that. He talked about it being in a flow, being fluid, being able to react calmly to every situation, because water can take any form. Water can be ice, water can be a gas, it can be liquid, it can fill a glass, it can fill a bottle, it can run through rock. But what are we? We're water. It gets deeper than maybe what he was initially talking about. So, with water, if you want to be fluid, if you want polluted water, now we want the purest water possible. And what kind of water are we? Well, we're seawater, right? We're not this. We're not distilled. If you taste your blood, I'm not going to get into that conversation. Especially if you're doing it to babies, that's not cool. But I had to make the comment, I'm sorry. We're salt water, right? So you have to have the electrolytes. You have to have the right connection points to function properly. But it also leaves some clues as to what your body needs. Growing up in a veterinary practice, which is where my 40 years around health, wellness, science, physiology really started. And my dad banned me from being a doctor, like I said, when I was 12. I remember starting to study mineral supplementation when I was 8. And understanding that if we don't have the trace minerals, we don't function properly. And it's how you get those. So when we look at the Trinity, as it applies to our body function, Root, with the creation of Dr. Christina Long, created the Trinity as a way to function on those. I'm going to check my time. Hold on, doing perfect. So, if you have the need for the Trinity, because we've been told you have to have the Trinity, how do you apply that into your life? Well, there's 3 things you have to do. The first thing, as we've hit on, is addressing the issues of toxicity of all kinds. Mental, spiritual, physical. Because we're loaded with toxins and pollutants in all aspects of our life. What's interesting is heavy metals like mercury, lead, and aluminum. They're rather prevalent in us since we were conceived, loaded in us every day since we've been here. So there's no question of whether or not you need to get this stuff out, because we all have it in us. No matter what level of performance you've attained in your life, you could be the most elite athlete on the planet, or a leper. And by cleaning up your operating system, there's massive room for improvement, because we're all loaded. But how each of us work is predicated on a few things, but we're all polluted. So you have to get that stuff out. But when we tie the spiritual, the emotional, the mental into the physical, quick note, these heavy metals, mercury, lead, and aluminum, they're neurotoxins. So they get into your system, they get stored primarily in your brain, your central nervous system. Well, why is that important? Well, that's what connects everything and keeps the information flowing. But they're positively charged, and they're highly molecularly dense and highly positively charged, which means they're attracted to negative things. So one, you need something negatively charged to remove them, which we'll talk about my little friend here in a second. But if you have something that's highly positively charged, that's attracted to negative things, that means stress, trauma, negative emotions, the transference of post-generational or transgenerational trauma that many people realize they have is all delivered through the same thing. It's the heavy metals that will hold on to them. So if you're loaded with mercury, lead, and aluminum in your system, and they're neurotoxins, so they're in your brain, and they're holding on to trauma and negative emotions and things that have maybe happened to you or happened previously, and what science has proven is that what's in mom goes into the baby. So that means if you have heavy metals that are in mom, and mom was traumatized, or mom received something from her mother that she was traumatized, and the energy and the frequency and the signal of that is held on by those metals, and they're in you, you're going to resonate with those things. If you don't remove the metals that are holding on to the frequencies, you can't ever get rid of the emotions. The spiritual trauma is going to maintain because the metals are holding on to it. You can try to deal with it, go walk around. But if you don't remove the cause, you're never going to let go. It's always going to keep coming back because that attraction is there. It might get away a little bit, but it's going to be drawn back. And what's really cool is when you start to remove those metals and they go away, so does the trauma. And you get to let go of it. And then in the same process, as you decalcify this little pineal gland, you get rid of the fluoride and things start to open up. And then you start to take care of your gut. Because what this savant did was take nature's most powerful crystal, which is clinoptilolite, and it is like a lot of what you see. It's a sibling to quartz, which is a zeolite, and it's amazing little negatively charged cage-like crystal that is a sodium aluminosilicate. Don't worry about the aluminum part; it doesn't hurt you. It's all bound as part of this amazing little crystalline structure. But what she figured out how to do, it's never been done before, and I've been in this space for 18 years, is she figured out how to unlock the silica. So you have something that at the same time is sending in little scavengers to grab onto and bind the heavy metals, the fluoride, the graphene. I think that's important now, isn't it? The other environmental toxins, grabs onto those and removes them, but simultaneously is delivering the bioavailable silica, delivering the trace minerals. Sea salt, or seawater, symbolism, delivers all the good stuff to start the regeneration process, at the same time cleaning up the system. But she knows, because she's smarter than all of us really combined, how to take care of the gut. So she created Restore, which this little gel, you can come by the booth, we'll probably have some samples, or you can get this stuff. I will tell you, this stuff is the greatest gut balm that you've ever seen in your life. It is a combination of some of nature's most powerful components that kills off the mold, the fungus, a lot of the parasites, and helps your gut heal. So it brings that leaky gut back together and lets your microbiome flourish by feeding some of the good stuff. So when your gut starts to heal, then the key little component that connects this brain to this brain through your vagus nerve in your heart then becomes really important, which is the neurotransmission. How do you boost neurotransmitters? Well, it's endogenous. Your body produces them. So if that's the case, then all you need to do is feed it, right? Like I said, I took 3 of these before I started. I don't recommend anyone take 3 the first time, because you might go down a rabbit hole. But this little guy, we have samples in our booth, so everyone should try this. This is the greatest capsule of greatness ever created. These little golden capsules of joy are a natural, adaptogenic nootropic. And here's the fun part. The same product you can take in the morning or during the day to feel amazing is the same thing you can take at night to enter dreamland. So Zero In actually feeds the gut the ability to produce dopamine and serotonin endogenously. What happens in that process is your intention controls all of it. Because as we've learned, we create our own world through our intention. When we're dreaming, when we're asleep, we do it through the dream space. How do you get there? Here's the fun part. During the day, you might need to be relaxed, you might need to be more focused, you might be doing yoga or meditation, and if you've got some of the other yoga and meditation booths and stuff around here, come get a couple Zero In and go do it. And watch what happens. It's outstanding. But you want to be balanced. If you're doing sports, you want to be focused, you want to be relaxed, you don't want to be stressed, and you want to zone out, as they talk about. That's dopamine. But when you want to go to sleep, you don't want more dopamine, because that's going to keep you going and it's going to keep you awake, and you can do that. Like, we just slept for the first time in 2 days because we flew over from the United States Friday afternoon at 3 in the afternoon, arrived here yesterday morning at 8 a.m., didn't go to sleep until midnight last night. And when I got here, I was a little bit gassed. So I took my 3 Zero In, and I was able to go until midnight last night because it was my intention to keep going. But when you shut down, here's the interesting pathway. If you feed your body what it needs to do, what it wants to do when you want to do it, it will shift and adjust, right? It's an adaptogen. That's why we like adaptogens. It's why we like things like curcumin, right? Turmeric. There's a lot of it in Restore and in Zero In. But as you change your intention, instead of producing more dopamine, your gut will produce more serotonin. Serotonin actually goes to your pineal gland. When it's decalcified, it will produce melatonin. The melatonin puts you to sleep. Extra serotonin through your pineal gland will actually convert to DMT. So you start dreaming. You get into an amazing dream state. And then in the morning, you get a dopamine kick. The dopamine is what wakes you up and has you feeling refreshed. You're not groggy. You're not like, oh man, I need coffee. I need to get going. Like, you're fresh, you're alert, you're awake. You might find that you wake up earlier than normal because you've had deeper, more restful sleep, and your brain is ready to go faster than your body might be used to. You'll adjust. But that's the fun part of the process. And it's the challenge I'm going to give all of you to, if you accept, find out how great you can be, because we're made for that, and don't be afraid to try it and test it. So, how much time I got left?
It's 107.
It's 107. I got 10 minutes. Q&A. Who wants the mic? Dr. Ron, come hang out with me. Okay, you want a microphone? Okay. Q&A time. No fear.
Can you see through your third eye?
Can I?
Yeah.
have been able to even when I'm driving if I close my eyes. So she asked if I can see through my third eye, and I've had some interesting experiences. The short answer is yes, and you all can once you clean it up. I've done this a couple times because when my body gets really tired and I'm ready to sleep, I'm out. I've had a few of those times where I'll be driving and have that happen. I'm not supposed to talk about it, but you can see the road with your eyes closed. It's weird. But yeah, you'll start to see things. Everybody's a little bit different because we're all given different gifts, and all of us have different processes. One of us, it was really gifted in causing this whole cascade of greatness. Her name is Dr. Christina Rahm. She's going to be talking and training on anti-aging on Monday. But Dr. Rahm, what do you have to say about this process in the pineal gland and what you've done?
I wanted to answer your question. So you asked about the third eye. So my background was originally, my first doctorate degree was psychology, and then I went into science. But if you'll focus because all we are is energy. So if you could close your eyes and focus on a white light when you're sleeping, which I've had since I was little. I thought everyone had that. Now I realize, I've had 4 children. That's not common for everyone, right? Because we're all unique. It doesn't mean I'm better. It doesn't mean other people are worse. It means that's just how I was born. But if you guys can focus on this light, how many of you guys have the light when you close your eyes? Just a white light in the middle.
How many get to sleep next to the light?
So that white light, if you'll focus on that and meditate, it will grow bigger and bigger, and you can end up seeing it during the day whenever you close your eyes, and you'll know things that a lot of people don't. With my background, it was very scientific. I worked for Pfizer. A lot of the Biogen, Lexion, J&J, a lot of these companies that probably you guys hate, right? I worked for as a scientist on the medical side. The only reason I'm telling you that is this is not something I talked about there, right? And I would work on lots of formulas, lots of different things. I did not discuss this bright light because that's not acceptable, in science. I will say this though, a lot of your schools, even like Harvard and Johns Hopkins, they understand that because I went there, but it's not something you openly talk about because a lot of people will make fun of you and say it's woo-woo or whatever, right? But it's there. So you just need to find yourself because we are all energy, we are all light. And again, there's not one of us better than the other, so don't feel bad if you don't have it, but really learn to detoxify your body and focus on that light. And that light will help you get through almost anything in your life because it's that light that's energetically aligning us, and it's why we're here. So I wanted to make sure I answered your question about the third eye.
We got 5 minutes and they're going to kick us out.
Before I'm going to step back, I'm going to invite Carolyn Mansfield up. And Carolyn, and let her answer some of the questions with Clayton because Carolyn was able to do to look at what really happens when you take these products. And before it ends, and he's gonna answer your question, I want her to talk a little bit about it. And this is not my day to be here, so I'm gonna hand it back.
Been there, done that, got the T-shirt.
This is pretty happening. I've been working with Group Run for about 6 months. I'm a naturopath and I do light analysis.
Speak up.
Oh, can you hear me?
There you go.
Yeah, so I've been putting the Clean Slate product under the microscope and we've been taking a look at it to see what it does when it's mixed with positively charged particles. And we did discover that it does actually latch on to these positively charged particles. So to show that it does remove these heavy metals from the body. I've also done other tests as well, just a standard laboratory test before and after taking Clean Slate, using sort of provocated urinalysis test. And the heavy metals do come out the body. I think it's about 20 drops twice a day is the dosage to pull heavy metals out. If you have a test and you find you've got very high heavy metals, especially mercury and lead, it's very, very powerful for that. Just it's so interesting talking about what you're saying about generational trauma as well, because my mum was born in 1945, and when she was born, she had a birthmark of one of those, what they call the doodle bombs, you know, from the Second World War that used to hover before they dropped. So she had a big doodle bomb mark on her arm. So my grandmother was really scared of those bombs. So it's just interesting, you know, saying that those imprints do pass down. I don't know what else to talk about really.
Come to the booth. Booth B13, as I was just told. Up by the front door. If you're walking to the front door, before you get to the exit, take a right. We'll be on your right. We're all going to hang out there. Everybody can come ask questions. We can continue this because I know they're going to kick us out in 2 minutes. Who's got another question real quick? You have it.
Hi, just to double check on pets and dogs. Because their physiology is somehow different to human.
Not much.
Not much. But certain foods mediate they can't eat, right?
Yeah.
So how would you say the alternative parks for like house pets?
Carolyn here.
No, I don't think
We
she
have an
is.
amazing pet expert actually in the booth right now. Miss Catherine Edwards. But for animals. What?
Yeah. B13.
Yeah. Booth B13, but for animals, so dogs, cats, horses, cows, pigs, sheep, fish, birds. They love Clean Slate because of what it does. But even Restore for dogs and cats has been absolutely amazing. But Clean Slate, if you want to get the foundation and the understanding, it's been astronomically beneficial for all breeds of animals because the process. Zero In for dogs is amazing. Yeah, you can put it on their food. And there's goodies being passed around. Don't just take one. Take two. Okay, so Carolyn's going to explain the last little thing real quick, and then we're going to move to the booth. You have to stand up.
Okay. So when I put the Clean Slate onto the microscope, I don't know if any of you have seen any of the videos, but they were so beautiful to look at, and there was some intelligence because they started to form lines, the solution under the microscope, and all the crystals went onto the lines. It's like they had their own intelligence. And there was one particular crystal that was just so beautiful that I've got it on the t-shirt today. So this is the clinoctiolite crystal. Looks like Starship Enterprise, yeah, from Star Trek. It's just wanted to share that with you because when you look at something in nature that's good for you under the microscope, you see beauty. And when you look at something that's from the pharmaceutical realm, it's not very attractive. So this is the information we're discovering.
And with that, we get removed. Thank you.